Smart Center Recovery. In this nugget, we're going to discuss recovering our Smart Center server whenever a disaster occurs where we can't recover from a disaster using the checkpoint backup, an upgrade export, or we have lost the facility where our Smart Center server is currently housed due to a fire, natural disaster, or whatever we may occur that could cause us major problems. So, in this nugget, we're going to use a cpinfo file and basically extract a few files from it to be able to recover our Smart Center server. So that's our first point of discussion, which I've marked with the number one. Is basically going to be files to obtain for recovery. And we'll talk about the actual files that we need to be able to recover the Smart Center server. Then the second thing that we're going to talk about are loading those particular files into a new management server and being able to start recover the objects and the network security policy that lived on your previous Smart Center server. And then the third point of discussion that we're going to talk about is actually destroying our certificate authority with the fwm sick_reset command. And then once we discover or destroy that particular certificate authority, then we'll move on to point number 4, where we will reinitialize our SIG certificate and get SIG set up to our firewalls again and get our network security policies deployed and pushed out finally in step number 5. So take some great notes. This is going to be a wonderful skill that you won't find in a lot of places, and it's good to have in your tool bag when working with Checkpoint Smart Center servers, just for redeploying things and just for general knowledge and knowing which files control what in your Smart Center server. It's going to be very beneficial for you. So take some wonderful notes and let's continue on with recovery of our Smart Center. Okay everyone, let's discuss recovery of our Smart Center server. Now I know we've talked about the whole aspect of running upgrade exports and CP backups and snapshots and all these different options that we can do to back up our Smart Center server. So what do you do in the situation when you lose your primary Smart Center server and you have no way of recovering it? Maybe, you're in the option where you have one Smart Center server, you haven't had the money to go out and build out a secondary Smart Center server, or the resources or the time, and all of a sudden your office building burns down. What do you do in that situation? Well, in a lot of cases, you may find yourself having to rebuild in a colo facility or something to get your business flowing again. If you have disaster recovery for some options for a secondary or off-site colo. And in some cases, you may have to just start over from scratch. What do you do for your Smart Center and your policy for all your firewalls that completely control everything at all your remote branch offices, and for all your vendor connections and all of your internet access rules and all your internet and VPN access? So your remote employees connecting from the internet from their homes and different things to a firewall that used to terminate at your corporate office, which is no longer there. Well, there is one thing you can do, and in a lot of situations where you have access to an upgrade export, or where I have seen definitely, if you have recently maybe placed a technical support call into the Checkpoint TAC, you may have been asked to provide a cpinfo of your Checkpoint management server, which is essentially a snapshot of the running operation of your Smart Center server. So let's take a look at that. I'm sure you're familiar with that by now if you've worked with Checkpoint for any point of time at this point. So what we're going to look at is we're going to log into our Nugget management server. So once we get into our Nugget management server, we're going to create us a cpinfo. So it's simply, all you have to do is do a cpinfo, and then we're going to do a space -o space to pipe it to a file. So we'll do nugget.cpinfo, and that should get it done. So what it's going to do is it's going to begin the file. It's going to use the latest CP-info builds, which are available out on the Checkpoint website under checkpoint.com/tech support. Download utilities, utilities.html, pound CP-info. Alright, so this is going to run. It'll take a little bit for it to go through and to create this file and make a complete snapshot of what's inside this particular file for us. And this is essentially going to be a snapshot of your rule base, of your policy, of your object files, and of your fwoff.ndb if you have any administrator accounts, or if you're authenticating your employees for VPN access to your management server for local authentication into VPN, or into if you're using any of the session auth or client auth or user auth settings that are available inside of your Checkpoint management server. All that type of stuff for authentication is kept in a file called the fwoff.ndb file. So let's take a look at this. If we do a list, we have this nugget-cp-info file. Now if we do an ls space -al on this directory, we can see everything that's here, and we see the complete size of this nugget info file. So let's do a particular more on this file and see what we get. This probably won't read because it doesn't know how to read this file, but there it does via the command line. That's one option for CP-info as well. CP-info can be read via a utility called InfoView that Checkpoint has access to, or you can look at it via the command line, just to show you that as well. Okay, so what do we see here? This is some good information to know about when troubleshooting your own environments. So it says the Checkpoint support information, and it tells you basically everything about the box that you're working with. It tells you the actual information of the actual software builds, the plugins, the patches, the directory where your CP status is set up. And it says you can do a CP stat space -l policy for the firewalls on. Alright, so let's just scroll down a little bit more and see what we get here. Alright, so we have some KMEM options for the CP status, FTP, HTTP, RLogin, and some information about all of our VPNs and our IKE certificates. All that's turned on. And we see more options about all of our actual files and processes that are running on the box. It's actually issuing a VM stat and looking at all the memory processes that are available. But you pretty much get the idea that this is a complete snapshot of everything that's running in your environment, where it's pulling all of your networking actual interfaces and everything. So everything that's available in your management server at this point is in the CP-info file. So at some point you were asked to provide this file to the Checkpoint technical support people to help you resolve a problem. Maybe it was a management server, a licensing issue, just whatever it was. Or if you have generated one of these files for your own knowledge and you have this on a USB key or something along those lines, how do you use this to recover your Smart Center server? And that's what we're going to be discussing in this nugget. Okay, so at some point during the whole process of recovering your business, you're going to find out where you're going to be, how you guys are going to set up, and what you need to do to recover the environment. And the first thing for any type of connection for anything that you do, it's got to be your firewall and your management server. So that controls all connections going in, all connections coming out. Everything is centered on your Checkpoint firewall. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at a few of the files that are essential for recovering this environment. The first one that we're going to see here is going to be all part of the fwdir/conf directory. That's pretty much where everything that controls the nuts and bolts of your management server is kept. So let's jump over to that directory now. So we're going to do a CD over to $, fwdir, all in caps, /conf. Alright. So list what's in there. We have a ton of files here. Now let's narrow this down a little bit. So let's do a more on our objects file, and using the tab command is kind of your best friend here, because that's going to be giving you your actual command completion. It'll really save some of your timing and your typing for sure. So we have more objects. We're actually performing the more on the file objects underscore 5 underscore 0.c file. So if we open this up, this is basically all of our objects that are available under the checkpoint dashboard. All this is kept in the objects50.c file. So you can see where that's pretty important. Just imagine a management server where you have hundreds and thousands of objects already defined on your system, and you need to be able to recover those objects because you have no idea off the top of your head what all the IPs are, from your 150 vendor VPNs that terminate at your old corporate office. So let's take a look at that. We're going to log into the old dashboard at this point. We're going to be recovering later on into a 10.20.1.23 IP, but we'll get to that in a moment here. So let's go ahead and do a login to our standard management server, and this will just take a second to load as it's locating all of our objects and all that. And there we go. So once this gives us our actual rule-based information, we'll be able to see exactly what we would normally see. Okay, so we have our standard policy, and our standard policy controls our access to our Nugget cluster policy. Now, under this particular screen right here, we have everything for our firewalls, all of our nodes, our network objects, our groups, our dynamic objects, everything about our port information, any kind of resources, any kind of trusted certificate authorities that we may have set up, anything with LDAP authentication, information about our local Active Directory domain controllers that we're using for local authentication for our users, or for actually moving our user authentication off the firewall, but making that LDAP call toward an AD server for our users. All that is kept in the objects50.c file. So you can see why that is so important, that particular file, because it's kind of the snapshot and the backbone of the management server that says, hey, what do I do? So that's one of the most important files on your checkpoint management server, is the objects file. Now the next one that is super important is the rule bases underscore 5 underscore 0.fws file. Now let's take a look at where that one is. So if we do more on rule basis underscore 5 underscore 0.fws, so that shows up for us. So actually, before we do that more, let's go ahead and clear our slate here so we can see a little better, and let's do this again. Okay, so let's just type it in again. Alright, so there we go. And as we can see, we have our rule bases. So you can see where that one is talking about our FW-B policy. And it shows us everything that's in the actual information for all your firewalls and for your domain name, your admin name, dates on when policies were created. But pretty much your secondary most important file, because that controls everything we see right here in the middle. That is everything that makes up our rule basis file. And if you don't have your rule bases and your objects and your policies in place, you're kind of up a creek as well, because you don't know where to push your policies to. So that's number 2 that's important. So far we've talked about the objects underscore 5 underscore 0.c file, and now our rule bases underscore 5 underscore 0.fws file, and the third most important file is going to be your fwoff.ndb file. If you can at least get these 3 files, you can recover your Smart Center server. Now you're going to have to do some things if you have any VPNs in play. And resetting the VPNs isn't such a big deal, but you are going to have to we're going to end up resetting SICK with their firewalls. But this is a good disaster recovery steps, and it's something kind of cool that you're going to want to learn just to show you're an uber geek on Checkpoint products. So, and the third one, as stated, is going to be the fwoff.ndb file. So let's do the more on that guy once we clear our slate here. and more on fwauth.ndb. So that's going to be all caps. There we go. Now this controls all of our user information and everything that's important about authentication to our particular box. So without this file, you can't log into the machine. And that makes it really, really difficult to do anything. So very important as well. So let's go ahead and clear off our slate for now. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get kind of brave here. So we're going to go ahead and actually get off this management server altogether, and we're going to issue a CP stop. Or actually, we're going to do a shutdown. We're going to completely shut this box down, and we're going to recover our environment on a secondary Smart Center server that we're going to build from scratch using these files. Now, I already took the liberty to take these 3 files and FTP them off this box out of the CP info file into an FTP server that's running on our particular machine right now. That way, from our new management server, we'll have access to recover all 3 of these files. So let's give it a few minutes, let this box shut down. We're going to log into the new management server that carries the same name as the current one, and that's something to remember when doing this. The management server name must be exactly the same, and the reason why that is the certificate authority that is tied to the machine will not function and will not come up properly without the management server name being exactly the same. Now, the IP address is different, and it can always be different. And that's a question some people will ask from time to time. Hey, I'm upgrading my management server, and I want to give it a new IP. No problem. Do it. As long as you keep the management server name the same, you'll never have a problem in doing that with Checkpoint. Alright, so let's give a pause for a few minutes, let this shut down completely. We're going to log back into the new management server and recover our environment. Okay, so the Smart Center server has shut down completely, and now we're going to log into our new Smart Center server, which is going to be 10.20.1.23. So we're going to log into this one, and it's going to ask us to accept the certificate first time we logged into it. And I built this server with the same admin credentials that we had on the previous server for our Nugget management server. And what we're going to do at this point, let's go ahead and issue a CP stop to kill all the processes on it. And what this is a fresh load of secure platform, and we set up the management server options, but we didn't actually log in or anything, and we don't have any of the objects and any of the role bases and anything that will allow us to log in other than what I put in the local installation steps as we went through the steps of installing secure platform to set up the admin account. So what we need to do at this point, let's go ahead and get into expert mode. Alright, so expert mode works as well. Let's go ahead and clear off of this particular screen, and we need to get into our directory we're going to be working with. So let's do $fwdir /conf, and that's where everything is kept. And we'll list what's in that directory, and we see everything just like we would on a normal management server whenever you install secure platform. So what we're going to do is we're going to be replacing the default files that are part of the secure platform build with the ones that we recovered from our old Smart Center server. So what we're going to do is do an rm space -r to remove and make it recursive of our objects file. So objects _ tab, we're going to remove that. We're going to hit the up arrow again. We're going to hit tab. We're going to get the backup of that file as well. Now that's gone. Now we're going to look at our previous setup, and one thing I need to remember is, did we actually issue... Okay, we did do a CP start. a CP stop. So I kind of lost it for a second there. So I want to make sure that we did that. That way those files weren't active and we didn't corrupt our new build of this machine. Okay, so we're in good shape. We did issue our CP stop. So now we can go ahead and do a remove on the rule basis file. Let's take that out. Up arrow again, tab again. Rulebasis.fws is gone. Okay, let's make sure that there's nothing else there for backup. Okay, so we don't have any more files for the rule basis, so we're good there. And now we need to do an rm space dash r for fw auth dot ndb. Okay, up arrow says there's anything else out there. We have ftboff.conf. Now that's a file there we need to leave because that's the configuration file that makes up this one, so we don't want to remove that one. So we pretty much removed all three files that we need. The objects file is gone, the backup of that file is gone, the role-based file is gone, and the fwoff.ndb have all been removed. So we should be in good shape. Now, at this point, we're going to go ahead and do a clear on this particular machine, and we're going to issue an FTP over to our local machine that we're on right now, which is 10.20.1.22. We're going to log in, and we're going to recover these files that I placed in the FTP directory off our old management server. So if we do a list at this point, we'll see all those there with our checkpoint information. So we have our objects file, our role-based file, and our fwoff.ndb file. All are in this directory at this point. So let's go ahead and take a look at this, or they should be. So let me go in and make sure all this is available for us at this point. Alright, let's take the Windows approach to getting into that directory and see what we have in here. Alright, so I got my objects file, I got my rule basis file, and for fwoff.ndb we can grab that file as well. We'll need that one. So what we're going to do at this point, I already set up the local authentication for fwoff.ndb to be my admin account essentially, but we've removed that. So what we're going to do, rather than starting up that old management server, I'm going to recover with these two files and see if I can reestablish our admin account just locally and see what happens. And it's just a shot. If not, we'll start up the other server, get the fwoff.ndb file off of it, and we'll continue on from here. But you pretty much get the point that those are the three files we need. So what we're going to do, let's go ahead and grab the ones that we can get. So let's do an mget on objects. Okay, use your star and it'll ask you want to get that? Sure, we want to get that one. Okay. Alright. Oh, one other thing you want to do. Always, always, always. Make sure you do bin to put it in binary mode before getting a file. So let's do another mget. Okay, that looks good. Transferred okay, connection accepted, we're in good shape. Now let's do another mget and get our role-based file. Alright, good. Issue a buy. Now at this point, what we're going to do is we need to issue a CP start of the management server. And let's see what it tells us. So let's see if it starts up properly. Alright, so this is a smart center, no security policy will be loaded. Okay, looks good there. And let's just see what we get here when we try to log in. Now, we may get some failures, and that's okay. That's part of the process that I want you to see. And our local login. Alright. I think this is going to let us in. And this is all because of what's under our CP config is where our administrator account is kept. So if we do 2 for administrators, we still see our admin account here. So we didn't wipe that out totally with our fwoff.ndb file. That's more for local authentication into your checkpoint dashboard and for any of your local users that you create. So we're going to say no, that we don't want to modify this list for now. And let's take a look at a few things. And what do you know? What do we have here? We have our policy. It's on this new box. We're coming in over a different IP, but we've pretty much recovered our scenario. So we think. So what happens when we open up checkpoint here and we're like, oh great, you know, we have the new firewall, or the firewall in the branch office should be okay. We should be able to get a policy on it. And we go to communication and we go, wow, there's no SIC. Without SIC, you cannot push policy to a firewall. So this brings us into our second point of discussion in rebuilding this whole scenario. And that's something that we're going to need to take a look at now. So let's see what we do at this point if we want to go into this area. And we want to look at maybe our nugget mesh and our participating gateways. So we see these two that are part of our participating gateways, and everything appears to be fine and intact, but there's a few more steps that we need to do in order to recover this particular management server, and we're going to take a look at those now. So what I'm going to recommend is we're going to go ahead and, at this point, go ahead and get out of the management server GUI interface. And there's a few files here I want to show you. From time to time, you may run into a problem when performing this scenario that you need to be aware of. Alright, so via the actual command line of this particular management server, let's do an IP ADDR, and okay, and we see that this is the 10.20.1.23 box, so we're definitely on the right box. Now, from this directory, there's a few files that you need to be aware of, and that will help you when getting into your dashboard. Now, one scenario that I've seen is you replace the rulebases.fws file, and you replace your objects file, you replace your fwoff file, and whenever you log in and you go to bring up your security manager policy, there is no policy at all. It doesn't load a policy. It acts as if it needs to rebuild a policy, and it just doesn't work. So there's a few files that you have to remove in order to fix this problem. So let's take a look at that, and let's explore that at this point. So let's say if we do a pwd, we do a print our working directory, we see we're still in the fwdir/conf directory. Now from this particular directory, let's get a little dangerous. Let's do an rm --r, and let's take out the rule basis file. And let's do an rm --r, and okay, so we're good. It's gone at this point. That file should be gone. So what we're going to do at this point, let's see what happens if we try to log back into the management server. It's trying. Let's see what we end up with. We may need a CP stop. Okay, so we still have our standard policy. So let's go ahead and if we try to open, save and continue. Okay, it sees firewall policy B. Alright, so it was actually loaded into memory, so it didn't work. So CP stop. Let's stop the actual file, and then we're going to take out that rule base file. Okay, so that's gone at this point. And now we're going to log back into the management server, and we'll see a little bit different of a scenario here at this point. Okay, so we removed that rulebases _5_0.fws file. And now we need to issue a CP start to bring the system already back up. Okay, CP watchdogs running. Alright, we're in great shape there. Now let's go back to the management server and try to log in and see what we get. It's trying to load the local configuration. It's connecting to Smart Center, loading local configuration, loading objects, it says. Let's see what it tells us. It's loading encryption, loading rules. It's going to ask you, okay, select the policy you want to open. Okay, let's try to open the standard policy, which is for our Nugget cluster. And we go to open it. Wham. The objects file is still intact, but the rule-based file. Notice anything missing here? We're missing our security policy and our NAT policy at this point from our management server, so it does us no good at this point. This box really isn't anything to us at this point. And now that I've jumped over to this particular area, we really can't get back to the objects at this point. So this machine is in total disarray at this point for managing our firewall environment. So what do we have to do in order to fix this problem? We're going to have to remove some of the files that make up the actual checkpoint conf directory in order to recover the problem. So what we're going to do at this point, these are the critical files I was talking about that you have to remove every now and then to correct the problem. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to go ahead and clear our current directory, issue a cp stop, let it stop the current management server directory. We're going to do a rm space -r, remove the current rule-based file that it loaded up, get rid of that. Now here's some key files we need to get rid of. So we need to do a rm space -r and remove the applications.c file. Get rid of that. Tab, get rid of the backup of that file. That's two that you're going to need to remember. Some things you might want to jot down, all the files that we're working with, and the two that you potentially need to remember are the applications.c and the applications.c.backup. Now the next one that you're going to be dealing with is a file called cpmi links manager. Links manager, I should say. cpmi links manager, and the database file also. So we're going to do rm space -r, and we're going to do cpmi links manager.db. So we're going to remove that. And then we hit the up arrow and then the tab button, and then there's the .db.private. We remove that as well. So all those files have been removed, and that takes care of a lot of the application.c, and these are the type of files that kind of cache and take care of what you see in your smart dashboard application. So now that those files are gone and they're totally out of the mix, what we're going to go ahead and do is go ahead and issue another FTP over to 10.20.1.20. See if we can log in here. Alright. Said no route to host. Cannot connect at this point. Why? Because we haven't CP started the actual box, so it doesn't have a route. So CP start. Let's bring this part up. Okay, now let's try that FTP again. Alright, so we're having some communication problems at that point after we remove those particular files. And let's take a look at something. Let's do IP space ADDR, and this is good. These are the type of things that we always have to work through as a network security professional. So 10.20.1.1. So ping 10.20.1.1. Let's take a look at that. Alright, so we're not getting there as all of a sudden. We don't have a route to that particular host. So that's going to cause us a bit of a problem, so we're going to need to resolve exactly what's going on with this particular host getting out to that particular management server through our internal network at this point. Let's see what it can ping. Let's see, ping 10.20. And you know what? I think I've totally spaced my mind at this point, guys. Our FTP server's on a totally different IP. You guys are probably seeing that and like, wow, has this guy not had enough coffee? So what we're going to have to do at this point is do an FTP to 10.20.1.22. And there we go. Put our bin and our hash in. mget r star. Okay, let's try mget r star. Okay. One more time, please. Alright. Alright, bin, hash, mget, r star. Alright, we got it. So let's buy on that one. Issue a CP start to bring it up one more time. And let's see what we get. We might need to remove those files, that CPMI links manager and the applications.c file again, but let's see. Loading local configuration. Connecting the Smart Center server. And let's see what we get here. It's trying, and at this point it's rebuilding those CPMI links manager and the application.c files. If it doesn't find them, this is the part that I want you to see the most. And this is typically what a lot of people will see whenever they recover their Smart Center server and they go to boot it up and they get no security policy. So they go to panic. So we call this one B. Tell it security and address translation and different things like that, and hit OK. There's nothing in it. Now we did recover the objects.c file because we have all of our objects, we have all of our policies and our protocols. They're all there, but we're missing our entire rule base. So that's when the panic starts to set in for a lot of people. So what we're going to do at this point, and we're going to tell it to delete entire policy from package. Tell it that we're going to delete B. And you notice something here. It says that it can see firewall B policy and the standard policy. So let's do a cancel here and do a file, open, save and continue. And you don't see any policies that you can open. Kind of strange and goofy, huh? So what we're going to do is do a file, exit. And now we're going to issue a CP stop, and we're going to remove the links manager and the applications.c file again. So rm space -r applications.c applications.c.backup CPMI links manager gone, db.private gone, CP start. Let's bring this management server up. Let's try to log into dashboard again. Connecting the Smart Center server. Loading rules. And B. Let's try to open the other ones. Alright, so we still don't see that at this point. So what it's doing at this point is being kind of difficult with this, where it's not wanting to let go of that rule basis file that it loaded in the first place. So what we're going to have to do at this point is we're going to have to go back through the process where we're going to remove the rule basis file, and we're going to remove these files that make up the current hooks into the current rule base file. And we're going to need to recover all that information. So let's exit, clear what we have here, and CP stop. And this is good practice. I recommend you doing this time after time because it's going to make you a real great expert, and it's going to make you very marketable in the world of checkpoint disaster recovery. Because this being the single most important part of most companies, if you're able to provide these type of services to them, you can definitely become very valuable for sure. Okay, so what we're going to do is go ahead and do an rm space -r, get rid of the rule base file again. It's gone. Up arrow on that. Backup. It's gone. So the backup file is gone as well. So now we're going to take care of the applications.c, applications.c.backup, CPMI, gone, private's gone, clear this, FTP over to 10.20.1.22 this time, log in, bin, hash, mget, r star, boom, CP start, Bye. CP start. Okay, so let's let this boot up, and then we're going to log back into the dashboard here and take a look at things. Okay, so let's see what the management server shows us this time. Loading objects, loading roles, connecting the Smart Center server. Let's hope it doesn't make a liar out of me. So it's trying to load everything at this point, guys. And alright, there we go. We have our standard policy. And under here we have our firewall management rules and everything going to our cluster. We have our stealth rules. Awesome. Now we do file open, save and continue. We have our firewall B policy. Oh, so what's it say? Inconsistent information found. Verify that your database is intact. For rule 4, cannot locate object in the IKE_VPN_remote any. So you click OK there. It eventually lets you in the policy, and this takes us to our next step in the process that you have to do to recover your Smart Center server. So the first thing you need to do is anything that you have an IKE certificate for, meaning that it had the VPN tab checked off under the actual firewall object, that means it basically has a VPN certificate on it, and we're going to need to get rid of that and then redeploy our actual certificate authority and then reset SIC with one of our firewalls, push policy, and we should have recovered this environment. Now we can't remove this check right here. If we try to remove it, it tells us it's in a community, so we need to take them out of the community first for all firewalls. So we're getting all these crazy errors and all this, and it's telling us to contact technical support and the world's coming to an end. So we'll hit OK here, and it says current changes are invalid and therefore will be discarded. It's okay. We're going to recover it. So under the cert, we're going to participating gateways. We got to get both of these firewalls out of here. Now, it's a good idea to go ahead and write down snapshots and any type of information you have in here set for any of your firewall settings. Now, this type of stuff will stay typically, but you need to remember what your participating gateways are, and if you have any shared secret information or anything for wire mode, which allows uninspected encrypted traffic between wire mode interfaces and community members, so you don't have to inspect that. All that type of information, just document what you have. That way when you are recovered fully, you can put everything back the way it was. So we needed to remove all the firewalls from all the communities at this point. Okay, so we're still getting the errors, and that's all fine and dandy at this point. Okay, so just looking through, making sure no more firewalls are there. And what we're going to do is we're going to open up Nugget Cluster, uncheck the VPN. It says this object is used in the install on column. You can do where used, and it just tells you that's fine. Say no to that for now. Try to uncheck it. Say yes to that. It's going to destroy the IKE certificate. That's perfectly fine. That's what we want. Okay. Now it says the referred entity does not exist in the certificate authority. Alright. And it says you're removing it from the encryption. That's fine. Let's take it out. We're still getting our errors. We're still working through it. Okay. Now, so Nugget Firewall B. Same thing. Close that. Same thing. Okay. Nugget Firewall C. Removing the IKE certificate. That's perfectly fine. Hit OK. We're good. Now, what do we need to do is the next step in the process. Actually, at this point, we want to go ahead and save our current policy. That's going to save the changes that we did where we removed all the IKE certificates. Well, it didn't remove it totally on this one, apparently. So we'll hit close on that, hit yes for now, hit OK. And it says, well, failed to save the Nugget cluster object and all these wonderful things about that. So, this brings us into one more point of discussion that you're going to see from time to time. Now, we were able to remove the Firewall B. That one's gone. We were able to remove it from Firewall C. That one's gone. Now, what do you do when you can't get it gone from this particular object. If you haven't guessed, you got to jump to the command line. So let's go ahead and File, Exit. Sure, we want to save those changes. And we're going to have to remove things out of the certificates directory, and I'm going to walk you through that. Typically, a lot of the times, if you can't get into the dashboard, you have to recover all this stuff via the command line. So it's a good time now for us to cover this. So let's give it a couple minutes, and I'm going to show you exactly where you need to go in and remove all the certificate information for the Nugget cluster. Okay, so to recover the Ike certificate and to get rid of it from our particular Nugget cluster so we can recover the certificate authority and get SIC reset to our firewalls, we have to dive into the command line here, and we're going to edit the objects50.c file, and we're going to be removing the certificate option from this particular machine. So what we're going to do is go ahead and do a VI. So if you're not familiar with VI, you should be at this point for the CCSC and any of your Unix communication. But if you're not, and that's perfectly understandable, you can actually look up some of the many references out there to VI as a text editor for your Linux or Unix type systems. So we're going to do a VI of the objects_5. Actually, good point. Before you go modifying your objects file, make a backup of it. Just save yourself the heartache from the get-go. I have messed one of these up before, and it was quite difficult to get it recovered. So, objects_5_0.c. So we're going to copy that to objects_5_0.c dot backup 1. Okay, so we have a copy of it. So let's do a VI. And we're going to VI this file. Alright. So some basic movement here. We're going to start moving down into this option on this file until we find our Nugget cluster. And then we're going to have to remove all the certificate information. So this is kind of a process where you just have to scroll down until you find it. So what we're going to do is I'm going to pause for a moment so you guys don't have to look at this wonderful text as it flies by, and I'm going to find the section in the objects50.c file, and I'm going to show you exactly what you have to remove. So let's pause for a few moments, and I'm going to find that section in the file for you. Okay guys, after many pages of wonderful scrolling down, I found the section that we need, and that section is right here, and this is what you're going to look for. You're going to look for the actual certificates area. It's going to be colon certificates, and it's going to be an open bracket or parenthesis at that point. And everything that's under this section down to right here needs to go away. So what we're going to do is we're going to click right down here. We need to find where our actual cursor is at this point by going over and then up one, and we're going to hit escape a couple times, and we're going to start hitting the X button, and we're going to click over, try to go up a line, and we're going to hit X. We're going to take all this out. Escape. Click right here. And we're up another line here. Now you see the reason why we made the backup file? Because editing this file is quite nerve-wracking because of the Unix line endings. It's just very different for a lot of people. And we're going to have to go up a line till we get to the end. We're going to use the X character. And we're going to take all this out. And we almost have that entire line out. Escape. We're gonna click. We're gonna go up. We're gonna go over. Escape. Over. And we're gonna do a I to insert at this point. So. Alright, so at this point we have our certificates. Let's escape. Let's go ahead and do an I to insert. And we're going to insert a bracket that's going to end up like this right here, where it says backup gateway and it just has a closed bracket, and that's what we want. So let's give it a couple minutes and we'll take care of that. Alright guys, so we went ahead and removed the Ike certificate that was part of the objects50.c file for the Nugget cluster object, and then we have to perform an actual sick destroy where we destroy the certificate authority. So we're going to issue the command fwm space sick underscore reset, and it's going to tell you that all your secure internal communication will be destroyed and all your sick configuration over to your firewalls are gone at that point. So we were able to successfully issue the sick reset operation on our management server, and at this point we have to go into cpconfig, and then we need to go into certificate authority, option number 6, and it's going to tell you that the certificate authority will be initialized when nuggetmanagement.nuggetlab.com. So just like it was when we built it in the first place, it's going to reinitialize that particular certificate authority. Now we'll let it run through this, and then we'll log into our dashboard, and we should be able to reestablish our 6 certificates with our firewalls and get our policy redeployed and recover the environment. So good times, and we're just about there. So let's go ahead and hit 8 to exit, clear out of this particular area, and at this point go ahead and let's dive into our dashboard and just see what we get at this point. Okay, so we have our smart dashboard up here. We went ahead and reset our certificate authority. Now we're going to try to log in and take a look at the state of our current dashboard information. Alright, so we got a new fingerprint option here. We can see that it's saying that the Smart Center was changed to protect against impersonation. The Smart Center has a new fingerprint that we have to verify. So we say yes to this for now. This should validate our actual certificate for the new certificate authority for the new Smart Center server, which has been recovered, and we should be able to log in and get all of our policy information at this point, if all goes well. So we're just about there, guys. We're going to have to reset sick, push some policy, and I think we will have the environment recovered at this point. So let's get the dashboard loaded up. It's trying. It's working on it. Let's see what we get here. Yeah, it's been through quite a little bit today. It's had a lot of changes to its configuration and things on the recovery side of things. So let's just give it a couple minutes, let it finish loading whatever it needs to load, and we're going to go in and visit all this certificate information, get sick reset with our cluster, and then we'll move on from here. Alright, so we have a dashboard, so we will be able to check things out. So what we're going to do is go ahead and save our current policy for now. Let this save, and then we'll check things out. Okay, so we know all of our sick information, all that is broken at this point. So we're going to have to take a look at all of our actual management server information. So let's open up Nugget Management. We can see that it's still showing the old IP address at this point. It has its certificate authority recovered, as we saw. But we're going to go ahead and update this IP to 10.20.1. 23 is what we're actually connecting in as right now. So we'll go ahead and hit OK here. And then we see that these particular options, let's take a look at Nugget Firewall B, and we'll go to Communication. It says Trust Established right now. Let's see test 6 status. See what we get here. And this should fail for us. This is just something that's going on with the whole certificate information. Whenever we recovered the certificate authority, it's just basically, it can't get there. We're going to have to definitely reset SIC with all of our firewalls in order to get our policy reinstalled to them, because the SIC was actually destroyed. And that's normal, and that's just basically going to work in that way. So what we're going to do now, let's go ahead and open up our PuTTY option at this point, and we're going to go ahead and connect over to a few firewalls and see what we can get to at this point. So Nugget Firewall A, let's load in that one up and log into it. Okay, we're going to need to issue a cpconfig, and we need to go ahead and put the SIC key in. Alright, so SIC key has been entered. We'll do a 10 to exit. This is going to go ahead and restart the SIC processes. I'm going to go ahead and reset SIC on the secondary firewall in the cluster and Nugget Firewall B. Get all those recovered, and then we'll head back into the dashboard. But I'm going to pause for a moment while I do that, and you guys pretty much get the drift whenever we reset SIC. It's going to restart the processes, which is normal, just like any kind of checkpoint firewall setup. Alright guys, I went ahead and reset SIC with both members in our cluster, and I realized one thing that's going to pop up and you need to keep an eye out for: your management server IP address, where we were using the 10.20.1.23 as our recovery Smart Center server. We have to think about licensing, which one thing that was biting me for a couple minutes there. And I realized that under licensing, I have everything tied to 10.20.1.20 as a central license. So what was basically happening is I couldn't push policy due to a license violation. So I went ahead and went into sysconfig, reset the IP of the Nugget management server back to 10.20.1.20, and at that point was able to set up SIC properly with this Nugget cluster members and push policy. So either way, we've recovered the environment. We've pretty much went from nothing to an actual working environment, and at this point we can click on policy and we can actually install our policy. So we're in great shape. That is Smart Center recovery at its finest. I know it's long, it's drawn out, but in a disaster recovery scenario, you'll be happy you have these type of skills. So let's let our policy install. It's going to verify, let it install, and once it's installed all the way, we should be good to go. So I hope that you gained some valuable information here that's going to help you in your daily battles against checkpoint software should you encounter it. In this nugget on Smart Center Recovery, we covered some very key subjects and some very key information that you're going to want to know when working with Checkpoint Smart Center servers. Now, the first thing that we looked at was what files did we need to obtain to recover our Smart Center server, where we talked about our actual rule bases file, our objects5.c, and our fwoff.ndb file. So we collected those from a cp-info file, and we used those to rebuild our Nugget management server on another box. And then we looked at the actual process of loading those files into the Nugget management server, where we got everything loaded in properly. We cleared out some files. We learned about the whole process of taking out the applications.c and some of the CPMI links manager .db files that can kind of mess with the display of your Smart Center server sometimes. Then we looked at actually destroying our certificate authority and then reinitializing our certificate authority and getting our 6 certificates set up again with our checkpoint firewalls, and then finally finally being able to redeploy our policy to our Smart Center server. So I hope we learned some wonderful and valuable skills that you're going to want to keep in your tool bag for sure when working with Checkpoint Smart Centers. And I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.